Peng Ga-un explained, since you drank in her place. I will accept your question. Guanghui nodded. If you say so, I will ask. Why did you kill So Wigan? Peng Ga-un lowered his head. So Wigan? Are you talking about one of the villains at Shim Ju-hyun's inn? Guanghui stared at him. You should know better than I do. Peng Ga-un was enraged, slamming the table. What? Zhang Ryan worriedly reminded Guanghui not to go too far. Peng Ga-un stood up abruptly. What do you mean by saying I should know better? What are you trying to imply? Zhang Ryan fearfully advised. Master Peng, please calm down. Guanghui, unafraid, frowned back at him. Across the table, Peng Ga-un mirrored his stance. They stood there staring at each other for a long time. Peng Ga-un couldn't hold back and burst into laughter. Haha. I think we should stop here for today, miss. Zhang Ryan was about to explain, but Peng Ga-un continued. If you come in 3 days, I will personally welcome you. See you then. After speaking, he stood up and decisively walked away. After a few steps, he suddenly stopped. Wait. What you said doesn't add up. Are you saying someone killed So Wigan and you suspect me? Does that mean you saved So Wigan? Guanghui frowned, not answering. Peng Ga-un sneered. Then you are the suspicious one. Don't project your guilt onto me. She approached the young man and pulled out a list. Different from what we've heard. I could only gather half. The young man sighed. The other half is probably hidden somewhere. The group of Guanghui and Sung Ryong quickly arrived and stood to one side. Just at this moment, a woman walked in. Cousin. Zhang Ryan waved her hand. No, you don't need to apologize. If you did it, there must be a reason. Because you're not the type to act so casually, right? Guanghui shook his head. It was just baseless suspicion. However, if I'm right, we need to be wary of the Peng family. I'm saying this because I think another disaster might soon befall the Zhang family, possibly worse than the conflict with Shijiazhuang. A while later, Guanghui went to Wang Ju-il, who asked with a puzzled look, do you have something to tell me? Guanghui quickly sat down across from him. I'm curious about the Peng family, Wang Ju-il asked again. What do you want to know? Guanghui got straight to the point. Who holds the real power in that family? Wang Ju-il stroked his beard and explained. After the head of the Peng family fell ill, Peng In-ho took control. Technically, the head's son was supposed to take over, but he used the excuse that the sons were too young to hold important positions. The head's children include the eldest, Peng Ga-un, followed by Peng Yu-in and Peng Zhong-hyun. There's also a daughter, Peng Wal, and another son, Peng Sa-young. Besides, there's another influential figure. That's Peng O-lin, the son of the head's second wife, known for his exceptionally high martial arts skills. I know it's strange that the child of the second wife surpasses those of the first. Usually, if the second wife's faction shows signs of growing power, they'd be expelled from the family. But they didn't do that for 2 reasons. First, the head of the household has been sick for a long time without recovery, and second, Peng O-lin took over power while the head was resting and recuperating. Guanghui frowned. According to you, Peng In-ho can't hold power forever, right? Everything will gradually focus on the head's concubine, won't it? Wang Ju-il didn't answer right away but asked back, can you tell me what happened? Guanghui stood up. I remember already mentioning that. Wang Ju-il was startled. Impossible. Aren't they one of the top 5 families? Guanghui indifferently replied, just because of that title, do you think they won't do it? Wang Ju-il was horrified. Do you really think they would do such a thing? Guanghui nodded. I think anything is possible. Wang Ju-il frowned. All right, if you have more concrete evidence, let me know. I have things to prepare if that happens. After returning to his room, Guanghui began studying the map. This place is the market trading area. This is the most crucial area under Shijiazhuang's control before. It's close to both the Zhang family and the Peng family. If they insist on making the Zhang family hand over this area, it will likely lead to disputes. Not right, the Hebei Peng family is a distinguished lineage. They can't resort to violence recklessly like the people of Shijiazhuang. What's the real reason they want to eliminate the Zhang family? When asked about So Wigun's death, Peng Ga-un appeared visibly uneasy, but it's not easy to read someone's emotions just by looking into their eyes. Some people can lie with a straight face, especially those trained by prestigious families. It's very likely he's not involved. While thinking, he touched his mouth and realized with surprise that there was still wine on his lips. No more trembling, am I really cured? It's strange, now even if I drink wine, I don't feel anything. This feels just like before I joined Qian Ying Dan. If I can keep this up, it would be really wonderful. Time flew by, 3 days had passed in the blink of an eye. Zhang Ryan was still diligently practicing throwing stones daily. Alright, let's do it one more time. After some time, she started practicing throwing concealed weapons. Hitting the tree trunk again made her so happy she couldn't help but jump. I hit the target again. Myungho clapped behind her. Good job. Zhang Ryan turned to Guanghui. Did you see that, guard? Myungho approached her and took out something. Young lady, it's time I give you this. Zhang Ryan looked at him suspiciously. What is it? Myungho quickly took out a real concealed weapon and handed it to her. Zhang Ryan was so astonished by it that she couldn't take her eyes off. Myungho helped her put it on her wrist. From now on, use this to practice. You can wear it on your wrist like this. Guanghui walked over, puzzled. Isn't it too soon? Zhang Ryan, hearing his condescending tone, got angry. Guard, why are you saying that? After putting on the concealed weapon, Zhang Ryan bowed to Myungho. Thank you, master, class is over, I'm leaving. Then she excitedly ran off. Guanghui asked Myungho, what do you think? Myungho smiled. Do you see anything worth evaluating yet? We haven't seen anything from the young lady. Guanghui asked again, about what you said regarding moving targets. Myungho nodded. Yes, that's why we have to praise her more, only then will we see her true potential. By the way, as he was saying this, Guanghui interrupted. Why aren't you leaving? Don't you have no time? Myungho was startled. You mean to the Hebei Peng family? Leader, I have more tasks than you think. Guanghui didn't care, turning around. See you later. Myungho frowned. Hebei Peng family? I really don't want to go there at all. Switching scenes, Sung Ryong, who had been extremely frustrated by the opponent's insults for days, was still rigorously practicing throwing concealed weapons. Good, next, do it like this. After aiming for a moment, he then swung his hand and threw the concealed weapon. The concealed weapon flew in an arc and pierced the tree trunk in the distance. Sung Ryong, finally succeeding, was so delighted he trembled. Great, now the final move. Place them between your fingers. Damn it. Why does he do it so quickly? Why can't I do it? After a while, Sung Ryong finally managed to place the concealed weapons between his fingers, standing up again, sternly looking at the target. I must be cooler than him. Then he swung his hand, throwing the concealed weapons into the air. The concealed weapons flew out simultaneously. Then they all hit the tree trunk. Although the hidden weapons stuck to the tree, they weren't as straight as Myungho's. But that was enough to make Sung Ryong happy. Haha, success, almost there. When I get it right, I'll show him, then kick him and shout like this. Get lost, go somewhere no one cares about. Right then, Dam Myung appeared behind him and asked, Master, what are you doing? Sung Ryong was startled. When did you come back? Dam Myung nonchalantly replied, just now, but are you okay, master? Sung Ryong excitedly raised his hand again. Of course I'm fine, I'm doing great right now. Dam Myung reminded. Everyone is waiting for you, master. Sung Ryong, confused, right now? Dam Myung nodded. Yes, today is the departure day. Sung Ryong scoffed. I was just about to deal with him. He's really lucky. Alright. We don't have much time, let's go. Scene switches to Guanghui, who also started checking his weapons. He drew the demonic sword and examined it for a bit to see if the blade was sharp enough, then reattached it to his waist. Finally, he picked up Gumado and slung it over his shoulder, thinking to himself, hopefully, I won't have to use it. Guanghui had just taken a few steps outside when Nung Ya Jin called out from behind him, Guard, please wait a moment. Guanghui turned his head in confusion. What's up? Nung Ya Jin put on a serious face and asked, when you return, could you teach me more? I feel like I'm facing an insurmountable wall. Honestly, I'm not even sure if comparing it to a wall is right. Guanghui frowned at him for a moment before nodding. Alright then. Nung Ya Jin clasped his hands and bowed sincerely. Thank you, sir. He was about to continue speaking when Guanghui reminded him again. Try to relax as much as possible when swinging the sword. Nung Ya Jin looked puzzled at this. Guanghui explained. Sometimes a freely swung sword can unleash its full power. A soft sword also has its own strength. Nung Ya Jin was momentarily stunned after hearing this. After a moment, he snapped out of it, clasped his hands, and bowed. "I will remember your words, take care." Guanghui walked away deep in thought. "This Nung Ya Jin. I think one day you'll become an outstanding warrior." The three father and son of Zhang Ryan were now gathered in the courtyard. The elders of the Zhang family also gathered, lined up below. The group of Guanghui and Sung Ryong quickly arrived and stood to one side. Once everyone was present, they mounted their horses and set off towards the Peng family. Switch to another scene. A blonde young man asked his subordinate, "No information at all? Even after going to the beggar's place, still nothing?" The other person nodded. "Yes, we couldn't find anything at all." The young man, with a face full of doubt, asked, "How could that be? Even the beggars don't know anything?" The other guy responded, "At first, they said it would take about 10 days to gather information. But then they said they couldn't find anything." The young man frowned and yelled, "How is that possible? There's no way the beggars wouldn't know something. Who the heck dared to say that?" The other guy, looking serious, replied, "It was Lu Bin." Hearing this, the young man widened his eyes in shock. "What's the reason? There must be a reason why he said they couldn't find anything." The young man pressed. The other guy continued. He said, "Don't be curious." The young man couldn't help but burst into laughter. "Haha, that's really interesting, this is absolutely amazing." Just at this moment, a woman walked in, cousin. The person who came in was Peng Wall. She approached the young man and pulled out a list. "Different from what we've heard. I could only gather half." The young man sighed. "The other half is probably hidden somewhere." Peng Wall nodded. "Not bad. Having half is better than nothing. This should be enough for now." "I heard the head of the Shijiazhuang family messed up." The young man nodded. "Yes, that's right." Peng Wall was angry. "It's really annoying. We already have a lot to do, and now the Zhang family wins. Why are you delaying when you could just handle it quickly yourself?" The young man frowned. "It's not that simple." Peng Wall was puzzled. "Why not? I thought we just needed to assassinate a few key figures of the Zhang family." The young man angrily snapped. "We are one of the 5 great families. We can only act with a justified reason. Plus, their guards are not the usual kind. We need to act more cautiously." Peng Wall smiled. "Are you afraid of him?" The bodyguard next to him heard this and said loudly, "Watch your words. Peng Wall doesn't care about him. He's pointing at the list on the table. Isn't this a valid reason? What more do you need to find? Or are you really afraid of him?" The other person couldn't hold back from blowing up, but the young man quickly stepped in to stop him. Peng Wall didn't linger and quickly stood up. "The Zhang family will be coming to our house today. You'll distract Moke. This will be easy since a guy like him is easily swayed by beautiful women. In the meantime, take the chance and kill that bodyguard." Scene shifts to the Peng family's training ground, where the sound of war drums and military training is incessantly booming. Nam Gung Bek and Peng Ga-un stood on the observation platform, unable to hold back their admiration. "It's truly amazing, just like the Peng family," Peng Ga-un said with a polite smile. "We are still far behind the Nam Gung family, so we have to work hard to train our soldiers." Nam Gung Bek laughed heartily. "Haha, you're saving face for me again. Young master, every time I meet you, I find you so perceptive." Peng In Ho, standing beside them, smiled and said, "Of course, with you leading the Peng family, it's bound to become more prosperous." Peng Ga-un frowned slightly at his comment but didn't respond. Peng In Ho ignored his attitude and continued speaking to the person next to him. "However, I was looking forward to the head of the Nam Gung family coming here since he is related to our Peng family. It's a pity that the Cho family extended the invitation first." Cho Young Sung, sitting next to him, chimed in, "Of course, we would like that as well." On the surface, everyone smiled and chatted, but in their hearts, they each had their own calculations. Peng Ga-un glanced at the bodyguard behind Cho Young Sung and thought, "That's Cho Jin-un." Suddenly, Peng In Ho stood up again. "Ah, you're here." A middle-aged man, leading several subordinates, approached with a smile. "How are you?" Peng In Ho greeted him warmly. "It's an honor that you took the time to visit our Peng family." Peng Ga-un turned to look at the newcomer, astonished. "That's a person from Miwa Warrior." The middle-aged man smiled at Peng In Ho. "How could I be absent when the Peng family is hosting a grand banquet? I should have come earlier to pay my respects to the family head." Peng In Ho laughed heartily. "Haha, thank you, these warriors here are The middle-aged man turned to glance behind him. These are my disciples. Their swordsmanship is quite good but still has many shortcomings, so I brought them here to broaden their horizons. The three disciples then simultaneously bowed and introduced themselves. Just at that moment, a few more people approached from behind. Hey, don't ignore me. I'm here too. Peng In Ho was startled. Oh, you came too? Coming from such a distance, it must have been really hard for you. The person responded calmly, you've helped us so much, how could we ever forget? Peng Wall stood up, walked over to Peng Ga-un, and exclaimed in astonishment, incredible. When did he start associating with those people, too? Not far away, the Peng family warriors hiding nearby kept whispering, oh my god, that's Miwa warrior and the Chung Seong sect. They're actually here, it's unbelievable. Peng Ga-un frowned and thought, the Nam Gung family and the Cho family have had relations with us for a long time, so inviting them to the banquet wasn't difficult. However, Peng In Ho invited those two sects without any prior notice. I can't believe he kept his connections hidden until now. What is his real intention? The Zhang family members just arrived and were horrified to see the guests inside, Nam Gung family, Cho family, along with Miwa warrior and the Chung Seong sect. It's truly unbelievable. Zhang Wang at the back wondered, isn't this a gathering of all the elite from Hebei? Zhang Ryan frowned, lost in thought. Peng Ga-un quickly came out to greet them, bowing to the head of the family. It seems everyone's journey was smooth. Zhang Wen-ti chuckled, it's all thanks to the young master. Honestly, I don't know if we deserve to attend this party. Peng Ga-un also smiled, don't say that. Head of the family, please come this way. The group then followed Peng Ga-un up to the stage. The people above saw a group approaching and were utterly puzzled. Who are they? Peng Ga-un explained, they are from the Zhang family. The crowd murmured, Zhang family? Is there such a family? The three members of the Zhang family couldn't help but look grim. Zhang Wang spoke up, we are from the south of Hebei. A middle-aged man from the Miwa warriors brightened up, is that near Shijiazhuang? Nam Gung Bek laughed heartily, oh, I remember now, didn't they just have a conflict with Shijiazhuang recently? Zhang Wen-ti noticed their mocking tone and, though extremely bitter, could only bow his head in silence. Zhang Wang couldn't hold back and wanted to step forward to argue, but Zhang Wen-ti stopped him with a hand gesture. Stop, this place belongs to the Peng family. In his mind, he thought, their reaction is understandable. In terms of scale, the Zhang family is an unknown clan, while they are all prestigious families that have existed for hundreds of years. Just then, an angry voice rang out. Do you noble families always make such noise? A middle-aged man from the Chung Seong sect angrily shouted, who are you to speak like that? The one who spoke was Sung Ryong. He walked up to the man and sternly replied, you'll know who I am when you hear my name. My surname is Park, first name Sung Ryong, known as Moke the Vagabond. The listeners' faces immediately twisted upon hearing his identity. Peng Wall, standing aside, couldn't help but smile at their expressions. The crowd murmured, Moke, could he be one of the seven wanderers? They then stood up in unison, clasping their hands in apology, hoping the great hero would forgive them. We were a bit rude because it's been a while since we last met. Please don't mind us, great hero. We didn't know a hero was present here, so we raised our voices a bit too much. We hope the hero can forgive us. Our family sends its apologies to everyone, and the Nam Gung family sincerely regrets any inconvenience caused. Zhang Wang in the back exclaimed, he is truly a wonderful person. Zhang Ryan nodded, yes, now I know how great his reputation is. Myung-ho walking with Guangwei in the back was a bit surprised. I'm surprised. Even now the name Seven Wanderers is still so big, I think it's even more exaggerated than before. It's all thanks to seniors like you. Guangwei angrily reminded him no. Should talk a lot. At this moment Peng Wall looked startled and ran towards Guangwei. Oh my god. Everyone is only paying attention to Moke. There are other very good warriors here too. When the crowd heard that, they were startled and turned their heads to look in Guangwei's direction. Peng Wall smiled with satisfaction because he had achieved his goal. Guangwei, as always, maintained an ice-cold attitude from beginning to end. Peng Wall then stepped forward to tell the crowd that this was the person who killed So Wigan, who was considered to have martial arts skills equivalent to 100 masters. Guangwei heard her give him this hat, then his eyebrows couldn't help but frown. Jang Ryan and Sung Ryong's group also frowned and looked back. The other group of people shouted excitedly again, "What? Did he kill So Wigan? Why don't we know this person? Did you really kill him?" Peng Wall smiled and looked at Guanghui. "Exactly, am I right, guard?" Peng In-ho, on the side, has been silent since the time the Jang family arrived. The middle-aged Miwa warrior saw Guanghui not responding and couldn't help but stand up. "Is this true? Did you kill him? Answer me, did you really kill So Wigan?" The middle-aged Chung Seong sect sat in his seat shaking his head. Who would say that So Wigan was capable of competing with 100 masters? He is quite famous in the evil sect, but compared to 100 masters, it is an exaggeration. Among the 3 people of the Blood Soul, there is no one worthy of the title of 100 masters. Nam Gung Bek is by his side. Nodding in agreement, "I agree. I have long heard that So Wigan has strong martial arts and extremely good talent, but this is the first time I have heard that he can compete with 100 masters. Perhaps someone was too scared to praise like that." Peng Wall bowed his head and sighed. "Sorry, everyone must have been mistaken." The middle-aged Chung Seong sect waved his hand. "Haha, it's okay. Young lady, it's not strange for a young person to not know about 100 masters. There are many people in the Jang family. What is their nickname?" Guanghui stood there with a gloomy face and did not answer. When the crowd saw his appearance, everyone's faces wrinkled. At this moment, Myung-ho from behind stepped forward to break the awkward situation. "Hey, Kwai Du Nan Ma. His nickname is Kwai Du Nan Ma." After listening, the crowd couldn't help but laugh. "Kwai Du Nan Ma? What nickname is this? Is that also considered a nickname?" Jang Wang stood aside, looking at Guanghui thoughtfully. "Kwai Du Nan Ma sounds like an assassin. Well, if that's the case, then it's not strange. It's very possible that in the past he was a completely different person." Peng In-ho then laughed out loud. "Haha, come on, let's go inside and talk. You too, Kwai Du Nan Ma." Guanghui stood there frowning, still not paying attention to anyone. Waiting for a moment, Myung-ho spoke up to explain. "That was the best way. Hee when they heard the name Kwai Du Nan Ma, their attention immediately disappeared. And that was also the nickname he used to use." "Yes." Guanghui coldly replied, "If you're going to say any more meaningless words, then go away." Myung-ho smiled. No more, haha." He looked at Guanghui's back and sighed, really sadly. "I remember that time." Soon he didn't think much anymore and quickly chased after Guanghui, "Waiting for me and the leader." As soon as the group entered, the servants immediately brought up wine and meat to welcome the party. Family. Everyone who invited each other warmly greeted each other and expanded their relationships. Only the Jang family sat in a corner with their heads bowed sadly. Jang Won-ti drank while drinking. Reassure the 2 children next to him, "Don't be too disappointed. From Jungwon's perspective, this is the family's current position." Sung Ryong sat to the side drinking wine and thinking, "No wonder, in the eyes of martial arts Jungwon, Jang family has less reputation than Shijia Zhuang." Suddenly a sound rang in his ear. "It's okay." Turning his head to see Jang Ryan looking at him smiling. He couldn't help it. "Okay, let's laugh along." Peng In-ho stood on the chairperson's position and loudly said, "Once again we would like to thank the famous artists who came here today. To share the joy of the gathering, I would like to demonstrate a martial arts performance of the Peng family. First, the 5 Tiger Don Man Dao, one of our family's top martial arts, please enjoy." The crowd's faces turned pale when they heard that. Full of interest, 5 tigers cut the door knife? It's really worth looking forward to. Myung-ho, who was standing to the side eating dirty skewers, heard that and looked a little interested. Peng In-ho didn't let everyone wait too long and quickly waved his hand and shouted loudly, "And here is the first master of this family." Immediately someone came in outside. "It's an honor to represent Peng family performed in front of you." The person who came was Peng O-lin. Myung-ho glanced at Guanghui and whispered, 5 tigers cut the door? So we can see how the Peng family's swordsmanship has developed over the past time, leader. Guanghui's face remained cold as ice without emotion. Peng O-lin entered the university from beginning to end. The hall then clasped hands loudly. "Then I'll ask permission. 10 steps to prepare." The crowd behind quickly lined up in a U-shape. Peng O-lin then pulled out the long sword at his waist, then used all his strength to swing the knife, and quickly the terrifying internal force on the knife turned into substance and spread out. The people present in the temple were startled when they saw this scene. Even Sung Ryong could not help it. Can't hide the fear. This person's pure internal strength is truly a great master. After painting, Peng O-lin immediately began to slowly move up. Baek Ho-du gone. Having finished speaking, he jumped up into the air. Then swung his hand and slashed out 2 knives. Then jumped down to the ground again. Then jumped up into the air again and slashed out a few knives. The gas blade turned into reality and hit 2 lanterns in the distance. The lantern was split in half by the gas blade, causing the candle inside to be extinguished, but the lantern could still stand upright without falling over. Sung Ryong witnessed this scene in amazement. The sword's amazing energy stretched up to 5 feet. Not stopping there, Peng O-lin once again grasped the knife to urge his internal force. Then he slashed out 2 blades with his hands. This move is called Noe Jong Sang Ro. Then he kept swinging around like a larva, shouting loudly, Wang Ya Sa Du. After slashing out 4 blades from him, immediately raised the long knife. Then aimed straight at the floor and stabbed down. The terrible knife energy quickly took him as the center and spread out in all 4 directions. Several Peng family fighters stood nearby. The people affected the most, their faces wrinkled like monkeys eating ginger. The Miwa warrior and Chung Seong group were now gasping in horror, unable to suppress their surprise. Waiting for the blade energy to completely dissipate on the sky. The ground was now engraved with a tiger word. Myungho exclaimed blankly, "That's amazing." Only Guanghui was still standing there silently from beginning to end, his emotions not changing at all. After a moment, Peng O-lin said to the crowd, "This is all, you guys." The crowd applauded. "This is really outstanding, truly 100 masters." Peng Ga-un stood on one side. His eyebrows furrowed, then he turned his head and glanced at Peng and Ho. Peng O-lin then walked in front of Sung Ryong. "Can I ask Moke how you feel after watching?" Sung Ryong smiled and nodded. His outstanding talent was impeccable. Peng O-lin smiled with satisfaction. "Many thanks." Then he glanced at Guanghui and asked, "What about this brother? How?" In front of his expectant eyes, Guanghui still remained silent and unconcerned. Peng O-lin didn't pay too much attention and turned around to leave. "Because I was already expecting too much. The voice user, what can you recognize with such a crude knife?" Guanghui suddenly spoke up. "Are you sure you want to hear it?" Peng O-lin stopped and turned around to look at him. "Please keep talking." Guanghui glanced at him and said faintly, "That kind of level makes me not interested." Peng O-lin heard that. His eyes immediately wrinkled as he looked at Guanghui, whose murderous intent had begun to show clearly. Guanghui squinted his eyes and looked back without fear. The Zhang family and Sung Ryong, father and son, heard his words and couldn't help but be surprised. The guests along with Peng Ga-un all silently observed the 2 people facing each other. Myungho standing next to Guanghui at this moment still couldn't help but cover his mouth and giggle. Sung Ryong stood up and smiled to console him. Haha, it seems like he was exaggerating a bit. He secretly sighed in his heart, thinking he was someone who couldn't grasp anything, yet he said such words here. Thinking for a moment, he immediately said that he wanted to relieve the siege on Guanghui's behalf. Isn't it too simple? What he was about to say was. But before he could finish his sentence, Peng O-lin interrupted and looked at him. Guanghui asked, "Do you mean my martial arts are so bad that people aren't interested in watching?" Sung Ryong was startled and widened his eyes. "Oops, this is a big deal." The 2 of Guanghui and Peng O-lin stared at each other again extremely tensely. Sung Ryong's heart was again filled with doubts. After all, he was thinking, what's that? He's not the type of person who talks without thinking. After a while, Guanghui spoke up to explain. 5 Tiger Broken Gate is one of the typical martial arts of the Peng family. It is a martial art created by a total of 64 moves. Originally it only had 59 moves, but over time some more moves have been discovered and now it has a total of 64 moves. When the Peng family heard him say these things, they couldn't contain the surprise on their faces. Guanghui did not stop there and continued to explain. The problem was the seniors, who had only practiced 59 moves. Don't pay much attention to the 5 newly discovered moves, mainly just like other superior sword techniques. The moves of the 5 tigers and swords continue and accumulate strength, becoming more hidden later on. Contains many mysteries and requires great enlightenment. Do you know why I talk about this? Peng O Lin frowned. According to what you said, it seems like my technique is missing something. Guanghui glanced at him and nodded. Peng O Lin continued to question, what exactly was that? Right? Guanghui calmly replied, it was elegance. The martial art called Five Tiger Broken Gate Knife looks destructive on the outside, but focuses on sophistication rather than strength. However, you showed off your powerful strength when you performed on it. The same goes for the final move of the Four Swords. That's why I said that doesn't make me interested at all. Sung Ryong, after hearing this, he was startled. Zhang Ryan just came out from his seat and wanted to console Guanghui, but after hearing that, he was also stunned on the spot. Peng In-ho stared at Guanghui, silently analyzing in his heart. The Five Tigers cutting the door knife is the Peng family's unique martial arts. It is impossible for a famous wanderer to know, to be exact, it is impossible to see through it thoroughly, it is so perfect that if you just look at it, it is impossible to recognize anything. What's wrong? Peng O Lin suddenly burst out laughing. Then he stared at Guanghui with a serious face. Who are you, Zhang Jiang's bodyguard? Guanghui harshly said, no matter who I am, it has nothing to do with you. The atmosphere once again fell into silence. Peng O Lin was constantly ignored by the other person at this time. His face was so angry that he turned pale. Guanghui was still standing there indifferently without fear. After a while Peng O Lin bowed his head and smiled self-deprecatingly. Haha, who are you? What does it have to do with me? That's exactly right. I've only practiced 59 moves. The one who hasn't been able to practice the following moves is not only me. Currently this is a problem for all Peng family fighters. Thank you for pointing out my shortcomings as Zhang family's bodyguard. After speaking, he turned around and led his brothers out. Zhang Ryan saw that and breathed a sigh of relief. Sung Ryong, above his face full of horror, stared at Guanghui. Who exactly is he? A moment later, as soon as the banquet ended, the Peng family sat together and discussed. Peng Ga-un glanced at Peng In-ho and said, it must have been very difficult for the Great Elder to have so many distinguished guests appear. Peng In-ho sighed. My lord, forgive me, because I couldn't confirm whether Miwa Warrior and Sent Chung Seong were definitely coming or not, so I didn't say it. Peng Ga-un frowned and glanced at him. No. Did you do it on purpose? Peng In-ho's face was silent and he didn't answer. Peng Ga-un continued to question, isn't it very strange? If it's true what you say, then when they come here they should first find me, right? Why did they come to greet the Great Elder? Peng Wall was next to him and advised him, brother, please calm down. Peng In-ho answered a very suggestive sentence, it was just a coincidence. Peng Ga-un spoke harshly, the Great Elder, do you have such a close relationship with the two great sects that they randomly come to find you? Peng In-ho is still very calm, it's really a coincidence that young master. Peng Wall spoke up and wanted to advise, but Peng Ga-un turned his head to look at her and shouted loudly. And me, I really don't know about this. What does it mean? Having finished speaking, he immediately stood up angrily. Before leaving, he did not forget to glance at Peng O Lin next to him. Senior brother, I am very impressed with your performance today. Your strength is very outstanding, but I hope you have more self-respect. How can our master's unique martial arts be incomplete? Senior brother, who is the pride of the Peng family, let a guardian warrior of unknown origin criticize in front of so many people. It's really embarrassing. After speaking, he headed outside and left the remaining 3 people alone. Again, Peng Wall waited for him to leave before apologizing to Peng In-ho. Sorry, Great Elder brother will understand our feelings someday. Peng In-ho sighed. Of course sir will be the one to lead the Peng family. Peng Wall then stood up and left. Waiting until there were only 2 people left in the main hall, Peng In-ho asked Peng O Lin, is it so difficult to grasp? Peng O Lin nodded without answering. Peng In-ho stood up, it must be someone with a reputation because he hid it like that. Peng O Lin shook his head, maybe not. Peng In coughing in doubt, isn't that okay? Peng O Lin smiled coldly and did not answer. Peng In-ho quickly went out, no matter what character he is, as long as he steps into the Peng family, I believe the eldest son can handle it. Waiting for everyone to leave, Peng O Lin picked up the long knife and smiled. It was so interesting, I don't know how he could see through all my martial arts. But that's how it is. That's why I have the urge to kill people. Scene changed to another side. Sung Ryong is extremely upset and screaming at the subordinates. Why'd I have to share a room with this guy? The servant sighed helplessly, hoping for your understanding because there were so many people coming here that we temporarily had no more empty rooms. Sung Ryong snorted coldly, what the hell is that? I saw with my own eyes that the disciples of the Miwa warrior and the Chung Seong sect each used a room. The subordinate explained that because they came from far away, the great elder directly arranged the room for them. Sung Ryong angrily pointed his finger and shouted, in the end, we arranged a large room for each of us, and the two of us crammed in to share this room, and then you want my sympathy? The servant advises, just for today, the other rooms are being quickly prepared. Once completed, I will take you two to a better place to live. Sung Ryong shouted loudly, I don't like it, why does it have to be him? Right? Myeonho lying on the bed couldn't help but raise his voice, talking too much, are you really from Seven Wanderers? After a while Sung Ryong finally calmly accepted his fate and sat on his bed. Myeonho lay on the bed next to him and sighed, hey, just being able to sleep on the bed would be grateful. It's heaven and earth. Sung Ryong angrily glared at him threateningly, you'd better be careful. Lately I'm preparing a lot of super tricks to deal with you. Myeonho doesn't care about him wrapping the blanket, turned around to go to sleep. What a tiring day. Sung Ryong was stunned. Did that guy hear what I said? After a moment, he softly asked, hey brother, can I ask you a question? Myeonho immediately replied, of course, just give me a tael of silver. Sung Ryong coldly snorted and put his hand inside his shirt to search this scammer. After giving the other person silver, Sung Ryong immediately approached and asked, you seem to be very close to the guardian Gwangwi. Surely you also know why the guardian Gwangwi reacts so strongly to people from the Peng family. Myeonho replied bluntly, is that about it? Because the Peng family is a threat to the Jang family. Sung Ryong was startled, is it related to the Jang family? What kind of threat is the Peng family? Myeonho raised a finger, another amount of silver. Although Sung Ryong was extremely bitter, out of curiosity, he had no choice but to take out the silver and give it to him. Okay, that's the answer. In the future, I can go find someone else to listen directly. Now I want to ask another question. Why does the guardian Gwangwi know so much about the Peng family's martial arts? When Myeonho heard him ask this question, he was startled, then sat up, that's no good, at least 100 taels of silver. Sung Ryong without hesitation took out 100 taels and placed a bet into his hand. Okay, take it and say it. Myeonho frowned and looked at the silver bar in his hand for a moment, then put it away and smiled. Anyway, it's an old story, so there shouldn't be any problem. Previously, there was a person from the Peng family under him. Sung Ryong was surprised. Was he a subordinate? Myeonho nodded, that's right, he was under his command. Sung Ryong asked again, what does that have to do with the fact that he knows Peng family's martial arts under Gwangwi's bodyguard? Myeonho bowed his head and sighed, is it relevant, because the martial arts skill that person left behind before leaving was the 5-tiger breaking sword. Scene changed to another side. Jang Won-Ti is with Peng In-ho drinking tea and chatting. Peng In-ho bowed his head and sighed. Please forgive me for being in the lobby, because of being concerned about famous people. Peng family neglected Jang family. Jang Won-Ti shook his head. Please don't worry, we also have seats, and we also have something to apologize to you. Peng In-ho smiled, do you mean that guard? Please don't worry, it's been a long time since we've had such an interesting debate, we don't mind. Jang Won-Ti nodded, thank you for your understanding, but it seems like you have something to say, wanted to tell me. Peng In-ho smiled, I heard that you won the battle with Jia. This is truly something worth congratulating. Jang Won-Ti humbly replied, it was just luck. Peng In-ho shook his head, luck is also a kind of strength. I really congratulate you, but how can you admire Moog? That's a very outstanding person. Jang Won-Ti smiled, that's just because we have good luck. Peng In-ho frowned thoughtfully. After a moment he put his hand in his hand. I was looking for something, is that so? May I ask you one more question? Recently, I accidentally got this thing. After speaking, he took out a few rolls of paper and placed them on the table. Jang Won-Ti opened the scroll to take a look and was startled. This is it. Peng In-ho nodded. Yes, these are the documents certifying Jia land use rights. Jang Won-Ti asked suspiciously, how to do that? How did this fall into your hands? Peng In-ho explained, I don't know the details, A few days ago our family's fighters patrolling around Shijiazhuang brought them back. Zhang Wenti stared at the red book thoughtfully, coldly. Shijiazhuang's territory has been monopolized by the Zhang family. All fighters from other families entering and exiting are subject to extremely strict inspection. But not only that, these are also all valuable lands. Fuang Sao. Thinking for a moment, he immediately said to the opponent, although we won the final victory, our side also suffered a lot of damage, so before he could finish his sentence, Peng and Ho interrupted. I know, it's natural. Zhang Wenti saw that he was easy to talk to and immediately sighed, so thank you. But at the right time he was about to reach out to take back the papers, but Peng and Ho reached out to stop him. Thinking back, I found it a bit strange. There were two people fighting. One person in the middle appeared and picked up the money that had fallen out. Whose money will it be? Let's change the way we ask. Is it reasonable for you to think that the winner should receive all the money? These are all real documents, they have legal authority in territorial disputes. You know that. Zhang Wenti hesitated. This great elder is. Peng and Ho smiled and looked at he did not answer. Zhang Wenti stared wide-eyed and nervously looked at the other person, thinking, if this important territory of Shijiazhuang is taken away, the loss of the Zhang family will be more than the gain. No, it's not simply a matter of the loss of those who died in this war. The value they exchanged their lives for will also disappear. Seeing Zhang Wenti so tense, Peng and Ho immediately waved his hand and laughed loudly. Ha ha, don't misunderstand. Could it be that I used these things to ask for land? After all, we are human, so how can we avoid being greedy at times? But we can't blindly request it. So what about the Zhang family's water transport being handed over to us? When Zhang Wenti heard this condition, her face immediately turned pale. Switching scenes to another side, Zhang Ryan was walking with Guangwei inside the Peng family. She exhaled as she walked, finally ended smoothly. This was really too hard. Guangwei sighed, please forgive me. Zhang Ryan clenched her fists and shook her head. No, on the contrary, I feel very comfortable. We have been ignored by them, so we still need to give them a blow. The bodyguard only did it for me. Guangwei replied indifferently, actually I didn't mean that. Zhang Ryan didn't care and laughed cheerfully, whatever. After walking for a while, she suddenly exclaimed, ah, I remember the first time we met. That day you drank alcohol before getting in the car. Horse right? At that time, I didn't show any surprise when I heard about Moke. Now that I think about it, if I had known that Guangwei was such a good bodyguard, I wouldn't have dared to offend him at that time. In the past, I used to do very bad things. Dangerous, right? No matter what, you must have done very well. You are so strong and calm inside. Do you still remember the things you taught me? No matter how difficult it is, don't give up because one day good things will come. He told me to endure because at that time. Guangwei stared at her. What the lady taught me more. Zhang Ryan's face was full of doubts. What is it? Guangwei explained, there is nothing useless in this world. Only people think it is useless. Zhang Ryan was surprised. Do you still remember? Guangwei glanced at her and smiled. How could I forget that day? The two of them just stood there looking at each other and smiling. Suddenly a curious voice rang out in the distance. What are you two doing here? I also want to go for a walk, can we go together? The person who came was Peng Wall of the Peng family. Zhang Ryan glanced at her in confusion. They had no other choice but to let her come along. After all, this was her house. Peng Wall had just while explaining, this is Pangjuk 1. People prune bamboo to create a path like this very delicately, right? Zhang Ryan nodded, yes, the surrounding houses and the road are the same. I feel a very gentle and peaceful mood. But what is that? Peng Wall looked at the statue and explained that this was built by a certain ancestor of our family and told us to see it as the spiritual symbol of the Peng family. The Peng family is located at the last position of the Peng family. Zhongguan, but one day we'll enter Zhongguan and create something? Zhang Ryan suddenly woke up, so it was like that. Peng Wall continued to explain, in fact, to do so, each person must first have one-to-one ability, and then make use of your talents. Place. Saying this, she suddenly turned her head to look at Guangwei. While talking about this, I want to ask you a question. Will you continue to stay in the Zhang family? When Zhang Ryan saw her suddenly asking this question right in front of him, he was startled and widened his eyes. Peng Wall didn't pay attention to her attitude and continued to speak towards Guanghui, so as not to stand in the way. At Peng family, we need a lot of people, especially talented people like you. If you want, there is always a place at Peng family at any time. I've heard that you used to be a part of the Wulin alliance, and you came to the Zhang family to repay a debt of gratitude to their elder. Now that you've helped them deal with Shijiazhuang, it seems you've settled that debt with the Zhang family. If you don't wish to stay with the Zhang family any longer, how do you feel about joining our Peng family? Zhang Ryan couldn't hold back and shouted, "What do you mean by this?" Peng Wall still paid her no mind. The Peng family is reaching for greater heights. We can see towering mountains and vast oceans, just like you saw in the Great Hall today. All our martial artists are exceptional. The Peng family can offer you much more than the Zhang family. The farther you look, the broader the world appears. You can see things you've never seen before. For that reason, you also need a comfortable place to retreat and face your enemies. That place is the Peng family. Zhang Ryan raised her voice. Whether it's mountains or plains, the most comfortable place is home, not a place of sorrow. The place where a martial artist can return to rest after tiring days is truly their haven. Peng Wall smiled and retorted, "Oh please, if you're a martial artist, you must stand your ground in the world with your own strength. A true man should build his own reputation, don't you think?" Zhang Ryan, after hearing this, was momentarily at a loss for words and bowed his head in silence. Peng Wall glanced at Guanghui once more. "So? Are you interested?" To everyone's surprise, Guanghui responded, "Not interested at all." Peng Wall, puzzled, asked, "Why not?" Guanghui calmly replied, "Because I've already seen it all. Mountains, plains, and even the sea, I've traveled through them all, and now I'm here." As Miss Zhang said, the best place for a person to live is their home. And my home is the Zhang family. Zhang Ryan couldn't contain her joy after hearing these words from him. Peng Wall wasn't disappointed either. Instead, a slight smile played at the corner of his lips. The scene shifts to another side where Peng In-ho is discussing with Peng O-lin. He refused. The head of the Zhang family is a straightforward man. He made it clear that if we provoke him, he's ready to fight to the death. But he has also thrown away his last chance with his own hands. It's a pity for him. We've already been so lenient. Peng O-lin asked with doubt, "What about the land deeds of Shijiazhuang?" Peng In-ho replied, "I already gave them to him. According to the plan, after killing that guard, those things would be found in the guest room, but after considering many factors, I thought it would be better to give them to him, and it conveniently puts some pressure on the Zhang family." "Do you know why I arranged separate guest rooms for the visitors?" Peng O-lin asked, puzzled. "Isn't it because the large rooms haven't been repaired yet?" Peng In-ho nodded, "That's right, but I actually have another motive. The head of the Zhang family was arranged to stay closest to the outer gate. Simply put, it's the most accessible position in case of an intruder. The other members of the Zhang family were placed in rooms farther away from where he's staying, so even if there's a commotion, they won't be able to notice it right away, and the Shijiazhuang land deeds in his possession will become a legitimate reason for other forces to intrude." Peng O-lin was still confused. "But what about the warriors we've arranged to protect the guests? How will we deceive them?" Peng In-ho replied calmly, "We have to kill them, what else?" Peng O-lin was horrified. "Elder, how could this be possible?" Peng In-ho explained, "We can't leave any suspicion. We must scatter the members of the Zhang family and kill them, then fabricate evidence to make it look like it was an attack by the remnants of Shijiazhuang. To achieve great things, sacrifices are necessary. At least 5 or 6 of our own must die for it to be believable. Also, protecting the Zhang family isn't our task, it's the job of the eldest young master." Peng O-lin asked, "How can we ensure the Zhang family doesn't suspect us?" Peng In-ho sneered, "They won't suspect a thing." Peng O-lin was doubtful, "Why not?" Peng In-ho chuckled, "Doesn't Shijiazhuang have exceptional martial artists too? Like So Wigan, for instance, didn't the Zhang family spare his life? And what's strange about a rogue warrior biting the hand that fed him? Besides, if it was a fair fight, how could our masters defeat him?" Peng O-lin nodded, "That's a good point," but Peng In-ho questioned, "What about that Moke guy?" Peng O-lin responded nonchalantly, "Peng Wall will take care of him." Peng In-ho nodded and headed outside. "I understand, let's proceed with caution." As soon as he stepped out, he called into the empty air, and immediately, a figure dressed in black appeared behind him, subordinate reporting. He quickly gave orders, instructing the animated archers to assist Peng O-lin. The subordinate looked confused. Why? Peng O-lin is the top martial artist of the Peng family, don't you trust him? Peng In-ho replied calmly, I just want to be certain. The subordinate was still worried, but he won't take it lightly. No warrior can stand being disrespected. Peng In-ho's expression grew serious. I'll take responsibility. That Guanghui fellow recognized the 5 tigers severing gate blade, so I suspect he might be from the beggars sect. His martial arts could be extraordinary, and I'm afraid Peng O-lin's excessive attention on him will cause delays. If disciples from prestigious families or other notable clans find out, the problem will escalate. The figure in black bowed. I understand, sir. After saying that, he swiftly departed. Peng In-ho stood in place, deeply uneasy. The plan was flawless, yet why do I feel like I'm tightening a noose around my own neck? Must be my nerves. The scene shifts back to Peng O-lin. Peng Wall had returned and reported that he had seen the entire world. Peng O-lin sighed. The entire world? The most prominent forces in this world are the 9 sects, 1 clan, and the 5 great families. Just thinking about it makes it seem vast beyond measure. Even I have never dreamed of such a thing, yet, he says he's traveled the entire world. What does that even mean? The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. Unable to hold back, he shouted, arrogant bastard. The scene shifts to another place, where Sung Ryong is glaring at Myung-ho in frustration, unable to sleep because of his loud snoring. After a while, unable to do anything about it, Sung Ryong finally gave up and stepped outside. As soon as he walked out, a servant approached and asked, where are you going, sir? Sung Ryong, irritated, replied, just getting some fresh air. The servants all bowed their heads. Please be mindful of your surroundings, sir. Sung Ryong thought to himself, they have it tough too. After walking for a while, Peng Wall suddenly appeared. Ah, so you're here? Sung Ryong looked at her in confusion. Miss Peng, why have you come here at this hour? Peng Wall hesitated. It's a long story. It's not convenient here. Can we go somewhere quieter? Sung Ryong was taken aback. Somewhere quieter? Peng Wall stared at him. Do you not like the idea? Sung Ryong shook his head. No, it's just that I'm already annoyed by that troublesome guy. Peng Wall, puzzled, asked, who's that troublesome guy? Sung Ryong made a dismissive gesture. Never mind. Let's go. If you want to go somewhere quiet, it must be important, right? Peng Wall nodded. Yes, it's very important. The scene shifts again to Jang Won-ti, who is in his room, reflecting on the earlier conversation with Peng In-ho, water transport. What are you talking about? Does the Jang family intend to keep everything? That was the condition for incorporating this into Shijiazhuang's territory. Shijiazhuang brought it to us. And the Great Elder knows the significance of water transport. You're really putting me in a tough spot here. Lord, please calm down. I apologize for my rudeness earlier. Due to the overwhelming work, I couldn't recall the matter of your noble house. All right, take it. This thing must be handed over to you. Consider it my apology for the earlier disrespect. The more Jang Won-ti thought about it, the more confused he became. What exactly is he planning? Calling me privately for a talk, handing over the Shijiazhuang papers, and negotiating water transport. Even though the negotiation failed, he still gave me the papers. How could someone as ambitious as him give up so easily? After thinking for a moment, he sighed. Indeed, I shouldn't accept this. I must return it. Just then, a commotion arose outside, and Jang Won-ti was startled, quickly standing up. In no time, several figures appeared outside, and the door to his room slowly opened. In the face of Jang Won-ti's horror-stricken eyes, a familiar voice quickly rang out in his ear. Yes, you should return it to us. Jang Won-ti was horrified. It can't be, you are. The figure in black had no intention of hiding his identity and quickly removed his cloak. Long time no see, is the master still in good health? The scene shifts again, and not long after Sung Ryong left, Myung-ho also got up and went to open the window. He couldn't sleep either, just like me. This situation is very favorable too. The Peng family is hiding something ambitious, and right now, the focus is on the Jang family. If I were them, what would I do? Of course, I'd act tonight. After a moment of thought, he vanished from the spot, quietly leaving the room. At this moment, Sung Ryong had been led by Peng Wall to a place far away. "Do you find the scenery beautiful? What does the great hero think of me?" Sung Ryong was startled by her directness. After a moment, he regained his composure and gave her a thumbs up. "I think you're wonderful, your character, martial arts skills, and beauty are all outstanding." Peng Wall then asked, "How do you know about my character?" Sung Ryong stammered, "Ah, it's just my intuition." Peng Wall sighed, "Is that so? Well, if the great hero feels that way, then so be it." "So, how do you see me as a woman?" Sung Ryong, who was drinking tea, almost choked to death at that question. Peng Wall quickly took out a handkerchief to help him wipe his mouth. "Let me ask you one more thing. Do you really like Miss Jang Ryan?" Sung Ryong smiled and nodded. "Well, that might be true." Peng Wall sighed, "Or maybe not. The life of a noble family is truly dull, being surrounded daily by men who only care about their cultivation, and noble women burdened with heavy responsibilities. After those tedious days, I found something that brightens my mood. It's you, the great hero. Can't you give me a chance, great hero?" Sung Ryong laughed heartily. "Haha, alright. But when my feelings for Miss Jang Ryan fade, then I will agree. I've met many women, but my principle is never to have two at the same time, so if you want to win my heart." Peng Wall interrupted, "Are you saying I have to wait until then? Do you know how disrespectful that sounds to me?" Sung Ryong bowed his head. "Maybe so, I apologize." Peng Wall smiled, "It's alright. So what about this? Can you become a retainer of our family?" Sung Ryong was startled when he heard this. "A retainer?" Peng Wall nodded, "Yes, staying as a retainer of our family. If you give me a chance, you can also use the Peng family's reputation to help the Jang family. The distance between the two families is not far. You can meet Miss Jang Ryan anytime." "Why not?" Sung Ryong shook his head. "I am very grateful to you. But taking advantage of someone else's reputation for personal gain is not something a true gentleman should do. Let alone in front of the woman he loves." Peng Wall bowed her head sadly. "Please forgive me for not understanding your noble heart." Sung Ryong waved his hand to reassure. "No, it's my fault." Peng Wall asked again, "Is this a sincere apology?" Sung Ryong nodded, "Of course. How could I be at ease after rejecting a beauty like you?" Peng Wall reached out to grab his hand. "If that's the case, then stay here with me tonight." Sung Ryong's eyes widened as he stared intently at her. Peng Wall asked softly, "Can't you stay?" Sung Ryong abruptly stood up. He stared into the distance. That place felt strange. Peng Wall explained, "Are you talking about that? Our family usually trains the soldiers early in the morning. The moon is almost down, so they start gathering for practice." Sung Ryong turned to look at her. "It's already too late, so let's arrange another time, miss." Peng Wall was startled. "What? Stay with me a little longer." Sung Ryong ignored her and immediately leapt away. "I'm leaving first." Peng Wall watched his departing figure. Her face immediately darkened, wrinkled like she'd eaten something bitter. The scene shifts to Jang Wang, the young man sleeping soundly, dreaming sweetly. Suddenly, he sensed something and jolted awake. Immediately, a long sword was thrust towards him. Luckily, he reacted quickly, rolling to the ground, narrowly avoiding disaster. The man in black wasn't too surprised by his failed strike. He quickly drew his sword again, staring at Jang Wang. Jang Wang stared towards the door, lost in thought. The door was 20 steps away. If the enemy was a master, turning his back to flee would mean certain death. Thinking this, he turned his head to look at the window beside him. Then, without hesitation, he leapt through the window, smashing it open. He fell straight from the second floor to the ground. Before he could even stand up, the man in black was already on the rooftop, glaring at him coldly, trying to run. "Boy!" Jang Wang shouted in frustration. "Who on earth are you?" The man in black calmly replied, "We are the ones you killed." Jang Wang was shocked to hear that. "Are you from Shijiazhuang?" The man in black didn't give him much time to think, quickly leaping down from the roof. Jang Wang tried to turn and run, but the man in black thrust his sword down. Although Jang Wang tried to dodge, the sword still pierced his thigh. In excruciating pain, he found himself unable to run any further. The man in black then raised his sword, ready to finish Jang Wang off. But at that moment, he sensed something was off. Suddenly, countless hidden weapons came flying towards him from the air. He had no choice but to retreat and evade. Despite his swift reactions, blocking with his sword, he was still struck, leaving him bloodied. He glanced left and right, shouting, "Who's there?" Not far away, a figure stood on the rooftop. The figure didn't respond but instead took out more hidden weapons, ready to strike again. Seeing this, the man in black didn't hesitate and turned to flee. Zhang Wang, barely escaping death, was still lying on the ground, clutching his thigh in agony. Myung-ho quickly landed beside him. "Lord Zhang, are you alright?" Zhang Wang anxiously exclaimed that the great hero father is in danger. Zhang Ryan must be the same. The entire Zhang family is in danger. Myung-ho frowned thoughtfully. The scene shifts to Guanghui, who is still sitting in the room with his eyes closed, waiting. Clearly different from before, due to his sensitive hearing, the situation is becoming increasingly peculiar. Naturally, the fastest change is in his perception and perspective. The distance to the left and right, the height, if he doesn't want to, he won't think of it, but when needed, it will appear immediately as he desires. His senses are at their peak now, but there's still one last sense left, that is blood. It's best not to see blood, but... Suddenly, he was jolted awake. This was because he had heard hurried footsteps approaching from outside. A servant from the Peng family ran to his room's door and called out, "Sir, the guard Zhang Ryan's young lady is calling for you." Guanghui opened the door and stepped out, asking in confusion, "Why are you calling me at this hour?" The servant nervously nodded, "Yes, it seems there is some urgent matter, please follow me." Guanghui quickly followed him outside, the young man continually glancing left and right as if searching for something. Guanghui couldn't help but ask, "How long have you been here?" The young man cheerfully replied, "About 10 years. Guanghui stopped and snapped, "You've been here for 10 years and still don't know the way?" The young man was momentarily taken aback and didn't know how to respond. Guanghui nodded, "That's right, to avoid attracting attention from outsiders, we must take this narrow path. To avoid suspicion, you must also avoid hills or treacherous paths. That's enough, don't go any further, it seems we've arrived at our destination." As he finished speaking, several assassins appeared behind them. The scene shifts to another location where Sung Ryong is rushing back to the Zhang family's residence. Upon arrival, his eyes widened immediately. This was because, in front of him, several bodies of the guarding sentries were lying on the ground. He quickly went over to lift one of them to ask about the situation.